Well, hi, Lindsay. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really, really excited to have you here. When I was thinking about what can I share with people who are grieving this holiday season, especially with it being 2020 and people dealing with, struggling with their own mental health through this year, on top of grief during the holidays because it's so difficult. I thought like, what can I share? And as I was thinking about this holiday series, you were one of the first people that popped up in my mind because you are so inspiring and such a light worker here. And I do many readings, and there are some that just stick with me, and you are one of those people, and your boys are one of those people as well that I will always remember. So I'm just so excited to share you and your
Yeah.
perspective.
Oh, I we have fun playing with you too.
I was so excited to share that with everyone and for everyone to experience what I've always experienced when I've had a moment to connect here with you. So thank you so much for being willing to be here and be so vulnerable.
It's an honor.
I would love for us to start with just sharing a little bit about your story and about your boys.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So Patrick Carlisle McKinnon, I love saying their full names, was 10 years old, and Logan Hayes McKinnon was 5. Actually, Patrick had just turned 10, and Logan was about to turn 6. And on March 18th in 2016, so just 4.5 years ago, we were hosting some friends from out of town and had big plans for the weekend. They had their children as well. And we just enjoyed a big meal together, and we stayed up way too late. And that night, after we had all fallen asleep, we woke up in the middle of the night to a huge house fire. And to this day, we still don't know what started the fire. And I honestly don't spend a lot of time thinking about the hows and the whys. That part just doesn't matter to me as much. But the whole house, all of 4,000 square feet, burned down to the ground, and everybody was able to get out of the house except for my 2 boys, Patrick and Logan. It wasn't for a lack of trying. We kept on running into the house, and the fire just kept on billowing black soot and smoke, and the fire actually is inside of the smoke. And it just became an inferno and pushed us out. And there was nothing that we could have done differently or better or more. And I'll never forget that night. It is literally burned into my memory. I've had to do a lot of therapy, just even about our common everyday language and how we use the words fire in our everyday language. When we talk about someone who's doing really well, it's like, oh, she's on fire. And it's like, you really know what that feels like, So things like that I've had to work with, but I feel like I've done a really good job reframing things. And also, Lauren, the way I experienced that fire was probably not your typical way that other people experience house fires. And I think part of the reason why is because of my own spiritual life that was pretty solid before the fire. And I had conversations with my boys, many conversations with my boys about life and death, because we had a lot of family members die and they went to a lot of funerals. And we just had this common language that was very normal for us to be driving to school. And, Logan or Patrick would say something about the silver lining around the clouds and how that looked like grandpa, or it looked like great grandmama's smile, or a cooking recipe, or a smell, or they would gather flowers and say how they wish that they could take this to one of their great grandparents or something like that. So it was just a common language, and they still kind of experienced their own relationships with their own deceased family members even after they had passed on. So it was not, the night of that fire was the most traumatic, most terrifying experience I've ever had in my life. And once I figured out what was actually happening and that I was not going to be able to save my boys, and no one could save my boys, not even the dozens and dozens and dozens of firefighters and first responders that showed up. I parented them through transitioning into their spirit bodies. And I asked them to please go to grandpa and to go to those family members that they already knew that had crossed over, so it wouldn't be such a abrupt transition for them, you know. So
What a beautiful gift, giving that, just talking about that, having that being an open language, or a discussion in in your family about death and grief and where we go, and so in that moment they were more familiar with that and looking and knowing that they're there.
yeah, because I think, once you birth your children, you always feel that connection to them. You feel that connection to their bodies. You can feel their breath on your skin. You can still hear their laughter. You can still, access that, and you can still have conversations. And I think that's been the most beautiful, not surprise, but one of the most beautiful parts about kind of being a bereaved parent is that love hasn't died. That love has just continued to grow. And I continue to engage them in conversations. When I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm talking to my boys and I'm asking them, hey, how are you doing? How am I doing? They have a baby sister now. And I'm just like, I need your help with your little sister. She's getting a little out of control here. Can you help me tone her down? They're like, nope, she's a wild one. This is what we called in for you. I'm like, thanks. So it's fun and it's funny, and I laugh with them, and I hear them say one-line jokes, and then I also feel their never-ending, undying love and support too. The really hard days, I can feel their presence close by, and when I can't, then I call upon them. Yeah.
And so how do you feel their presence though? How is it? Is it just a feeling, a knowing? How are you?
Yeah, it's a feeling, it's a knowing. Patrick, I would say, was more, because he was older, so his spiritual development was a little bit more advanced. And he was wise. He was wise beyond his years, even on earth. And his teachers and other adults would talk about that and still talk about that. And so when I feel his presence, it's really in relationship to me going through a hard time, and then him being like, hey, mom, I got you. Like, just take a deep breath and just take one half of a step forward. And you don't have to know the next few steps. You just have to have enough courage and enough strength to take one step forward. And so it's things like that. Shortly after the fire, I actually was leading a trip in Belize. And there was one day in particular, actually a couple of days in a row, where we had lots of torrential thunderstorms, and we were on this island. And I was really afraid to go into the water. And this was just 9 months after the fire. And I was afraid that if I had gone in the water, that I wasn't going to come back. And I remember waking up on the last morning And I remember Patrick saying, "Hey, Mom, I bet you 20 bucks." And that was in direct relationship to a memory where I bet him 20 bucks that he wouldn't go into some cold, cold water. And so I literally woke up laughing. I'm like, "Excuse me? Like, you're going to double dog dare me?" And he was like, "I bet you 20 bucks." And when I went out, the sun was shining and there was no rain and the waters were calm. And I went into the water and then there was a double rainbow soon after that. So I'm like, okay, I can trust you. When you tap in your wisdom, it's not just me making up things in my head. Like, I can trust it. I can trust that intuitive.
And that's the gift that I wish that that every single parent could be given or could have themselves, is just trusting that feeling, trusting that voice, trusting the signs that you're receiving.
Yeah.
In it's as a medium, I can give you that moment or I can give you that validation. But what I wish for every person who's lost someone is for them to grow their own relationship. So how did you get to that trusting? I mean, obviously you're a very spiritual person prior, like you said, but how did you get to that point?
Well, I think by slowing down and giving myself permission to slow down
Yeah.
and permission to rest and permission to grieve, permission to feel it all, especially when it doesn't feel good, permission to cry, permission to wail, permission to beat, excuse me, permission to beat pillows on the bed. I'm sorry, she's like running around in circles here. She's a little bit overtired, I think. Permission to say hi, Lauren.
Hi, hi, pretty girl.
Permission to beat pillows on the bed. One of my favorite things that I love doing is when I'm really just in a rage state about it all, and I like snapping dish towels up against the kitchen counter for 5 minutes. I'll turn a rage song on and just allow the rage room to get out of my body. Because if I don't allow it the room, then it stays in my body. And then it starts affecting everything else. It's like this terrible ripple effect, this cascading series of events that can happen because I'm not dumping that energy, that charge, because it doesn't really belong in my body. I'm not meant to, we, in my personal opinion, are not meant to be living in fear. We are meant to be living purposefully and with love and with a ton of compassion. And even though this thing happened to me, it doesn't have to define me forever. Even though that moment defined my life, like there was definitely a before and definitely an after, and I am forever a changed woman, a changed mother, a changed sister, a changed daughter. Like all of my roles and all of my relationships changed. um, but I don't have to be defined by that moment, you know.
So what other tools have helped you get here? Because it is not an easy thing
No.
to do. I mean, for you to get here to this
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah. I have had for many years, I'm an extrovert and I am deeply involved in lots and lots of different communities and lots of different kinds of communities with different sets of values. And so it was really good for me to lean into all of those communities and let them hold me and hold me up. I love ritual and I love ceremony. Um, so one of the first things that I did when I got out of the hospital is I went to my home church and had them clear the room where there's a labyrinth on the floor. And I just walked. I didn't even walk. Honestly, I rolled on the floor and just sobbed in tears. But that labyrinth represents a very deep internal pilgrimage. And what was interesting is that it was right before Easter. And there was a little yellow Easter egg that was right sitting on the floor at the entrance of the labyrinth. And inside the Easter egg was a bag of Skittles. And that was Logan's favorite candy. And we had eaten a whole bag together the night of the fire. And so to me, it was just another sign from one of my boys just saying, hey, we're here, we got you. This is really hard. This is the hardest thing ever. And we can still do the hard things with massive compassion, compassion for yourself, compassion for your other family members. But when I'm ready, I could do it.
Wow.
So yeah.
So the signs and the rituals and connecting in different communities has been helpful for you. What is a piece of advice that you would give to someone else who is walking through this journey?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I actually have a whole chart that is what to say and what not to say when you're grieving, and
Share
what
that, please.
not to say
Yes.
or do when you're the one supporting someone in grief.
Yeah.
And it's all like the little slogans that we grow up with that are like those canned phrases are not really helpful to hear in those moments. Time heals everything. No, time doesn't heal everything. Doing the work heals, and engaging in the work heals. Sending love and light, by all means, send love and light, please. But also send some meals. Also,
Yeah.
help me with my dishes every now and then.
Mm.
Help me with my kiddo if you have another child, or help me just run basic errands like walk my dog. The little things become really hard things sometimes. And to be able to delegate those things are so helpful, especially through holidays, giving yourself and giving others permission to be a basket case, to not show up at the Christmas Eve dinner table if it is too much and too hard. Um, Give them space, give them an extra soft pillow, to cry into. Serve them dinner in bed, give them slippers and a bathrobe if that's what they want, or give them a rowdy party, but it's nice to be asked what they need. It's also nice to say like, hey, is it okay if I talk about Logan or talk about Patrick in front of you? Because a lot of people don't know if it is or isn't okay. And a lot of people are so afraid to offend and they don't want to put you back into a trauma state. So they'd rather say nothing at all. And sometimes saying nothing further isolates us, right? And that isolation is devastating to us. So ask, like, hey, do you want to talk about Logan? Do you want to talk about Patrick? Tell me about their favorite Christmas ornaments or their favorite holiday meals or their favorite traditions. Would you like to do those traditions this year or not? And for me, it was really hard to decorate Christmas trees. Because that was a tradition that we had with our family. Actually, this year will be the first time that I'll have a Christmas tree. And I'm actually really looking forward to it. Though I did have Christmas trees, just one for just Patrick and Logan, just little miniature trees. And because it was a total house fire, we lost it. We lost all of their special Christmas ornaments, all of their artwork, everything. So I didn't have those memories to hang on the tree that I was used to hanging on trees. So that's another reason why I chose not to do a tree for several years, but I would hang a Moravian star on the porch instead, and that was like that guiding light saying, hey, I'm still here. I still love you. I'm still practicing. I'm in this. This piece is just a little too much for me, but I can do this,
Yes. And so being asked is in that conversation is so necessary. There's so many people that, love who watch people walk through this grief, but don't know what to do and they're scared. And this conversation isn't happening. So it's so important to have that, to move closer, not push yourself away.
Exactly.
And sometimes you're going to get it wrong.
Sometimes you're going to get it wrong and that's okay. And that's the thing. Like sometimes you do it wrong and you're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Can I have a do-over? That was awkward. That didn't feel right. What do you need more of? What do you need less of? Those are two powerful questions. And it's an open-ended question. So it gives the person who is grieving the power to make choices, right? And not offer with an answer that's to be expected. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Wow,
Yeah.
that is powerful. That is
Yeah.
so, that is so necessary. I hope that you'll share that list,
Yeah.
on
I
every
will.
platform you possibly can, because that in itself, like because I'm sure you feel so lonely as it is, right? I mean,
Yeah.
to have people just not know what to say, and so they move
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. That's I'm glad you brought that up because that was really challenging, especially those first weeks, those first months, that first year. And even beyond that first year, we're at 4.5 years now. I, because our house fire was also portrayed through the media, it was a very public loss. So people would step back, they wouldn't know how to engage me. And it would also bring up their own fears, right? So I kind of felt like I was the walking poster child for every mother's worst nightmare,
Mm,
right? Who wants to be in a house fire and lose everything, including your two most cherished beings on the face of this planet? Nobody. So, in order for them to engage me in any way, they had to be strong enough in themselves in order to do that. Not everybody is. And you know what? That's also okay,
yeah.
right? To not force it and to just have self compassion and have compassion for the other people as well, to catch them in a place where they're in an unknown spaces at the same time.
Mm, wow.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And to not force it. So that's a big piece too. Teach
Yeah.
people do these things. Here are some options. Here are some ways to help.
Yes.
Don't force it either, because it will be felt, and then you'll feel even more lonely,
Right.
isolated in that moment, possibly. So
Right.
that's really big. Are there any other like major tools that have like helped you here on this journey, just to get you? Anything else that you can think of? I know you have a whole list that
I
you
have
want to share with everybody, which I love.
things that have been tools for me. Simple things like plunging my face in a vase of flowers,
Ooh.
using essential oils. So, smell is such a powerful way to change the chemistry in your brain. And when you're sad, when you're depressed, when you're filled with anxiety, cortisol is rushing into your brain and taking over your body. So anything that can redirect those neural pathways in your brain and put it into a pleasure state. So smelling flowers, smelling, cooking something that's very flavorful, giving myself a massage on the neck, on my feet, washing my face, booking a massage, booking an acupuncture appointment, um, meeting with my medium on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much um, that has helped heal, because even though I have this continued relationship with my boys, and not just my boys, my dad, my grandparents, um, to hear them come through you and to give me affirmations of what I thought I might know, but not quite know, or things that I didn't even know or weren't aware of, was just really, really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Very
It is
grounding.
a good tool. It is a good tool, but there's so many, so
Oh
many.
my gosh, walking in the woods and just asking, okay, God, like show me something that is a visual, tangible thing of what I'm feeling and experiencing inside. Because sometimes what we're feeling is just confusing, right? And so maybe it's a tree with the that's fallen over and all the roots are just exposed. That's what I felt like at the very beginning, especially because it was so public, like all of the raw was just hanging out everywhere, you know. Or maybe it was, go climb that tree and sit in the branch and feel what it's like to be above,
Mm.
you know. and take a breath there. Sometimes it's sitting by rivers. Okay, where's the fluidity that I need? Where do I need to find fluidity in my life? And that could be in my body. If my body was feeling too tight and too tense and in pain, because grief can show up as physical pain in our bodies, or whether it's like in an attitude or a conscious thought that I just need to let go of. Yeah. Other things that have been helpful, I love using oracle decks. I've learned how to read tarot in recent years. I love stones and rocks and crystals, and now I build altars. And I love when I'm out on nature walks, and especially if I feel particularly connected to them, I will say, okay, is there a gift here for me? And whatever, I'll start looking around or just being open to it. And maybe it's a stick, maybe it's a stone, maybe it's a fossil, maybe it's like a deer antler. So many things that I've collected over the years. Sometimes I'll just keep them in my pockets, and people tease me because in all of my jackets, they're so heavy because there's at least 1 or 2 stones in each of the pockets. And yeah.
You've discovered like healing modalities in like crystals and tarot and oracle cards. That's really cool. That is really cool. So do you pick cards or read for yourself when you need to?
Oh yeah, almost every day.
Wow.
Yeah, almost every day. Sound healing has become another beautiful tool that was really so subtle and so gentle and so powerful for me. And that is just laying on the floor with a sound scientist or a therapist, healer. And sometimes they use Tibetan singing bowls, sometimes they're crystal bowls, sometimes they're drums and rattles, and to have them scan over my body and they can feel the stuck points. And then they focus the sound, that vibration, that frequency in that area of my body. And what was really fascinating about this, Lauren, was that after being in a house fire, I had a lot of smoke inhalation damage, and I had damage to my vocal cords. I was told I was never going to be able to speak the same way again. And I did a lot of therapy on my vocal cords. But it was the sound healing that would literally shake the soot out of my lungs. So none of the medicines, none of the inhalers, all of that suppressed it, but the sound healing literally shook it. And then I was able to cough it up and get it out of my body. And that's huge. That's huge. So
that is huge. Wow. I just purchased my first sound bowl. I love it.
Oh, yay! Yeah. Is it a really deep one? Is it?
It's just a big white one, and it's huge. Yeah. I hadn't felt drawn to it until this point, but it is so wonderful. Like you can feel it move through you. I can understand. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
That would have cleared that up for you and been so healing.
Yeah.
What beautiful proof too of that. That's so beautiful. So how many healing tools did you have written down? Do you remember how many was it?
57.
57.
57. Yeah. Talk therapy. I love EMDR. I love somatic therapies. I've become like a somatic coach myself and have worked on new certifications for trauma healing, but I'm also an embodiment coach because I was a massage therapist and childbirth doula for so long. So I'm used to using a backdoor approach in my own work. So when this fire happened, I knew to just go straight to the body, go straight to the body, go straight to the body. And what we're learning now, the new science, if you don't mind me getting on my soapbox here, you can't study grief or embodiment or trauma healing without coming across names like Peter Levine, who wrote Waking the Tiger, and he writes a lot about shaking. I teach a form of dance movement called Koya, Qoya. And in a Koya class, you connect to your breath, you gently open up your body, you open your heart, because we don't ever close our hearts. We
Mm.
open the backs of our hearts, open the fronts of our hearts. We open our hips. We dance through our yoga, and we do shadow work. And after the shadow work, we go into shaking, and it feels so good to literally start at your toes and start shaking your toes and your leg and your booty and your shoulders and really drop out all that tension and bring breath and sound and voice to it and just get it out, out, out. So the new science is showing that because of polyvagal theory and how the vagus nerve works in our brains, in our parasympathetic nervous system, that 20% of that vagal nerve, which helps us to regulate our emotions, 20% of that vagal nerve runs messages, fibers from the brain to the body. So if we're in talk therapy and cognitive behavior, 20% of that healing work is happening. 80% of that vagal nerve is running messages from the body back to the brain. So if we're only working through talk therapy and not engaging our bodies, we're not even doing half of the work. So healing has to happen and has to incorporate the body as well.
Wow. And you know what? And I think it's going to be different for everyone, right? Like this healing process and the tools that we're feeling drawn to, and maybe some tools have changed. So maybe over time you've had different tools. And that's what I love, that you took the time to like think and write down, to share the 57 different healing
Yeah.
modalities that you've used, because there's so much more than I had ever known about these tools that are offered. So if something's not resonating and maybe the mainstream is like, go to the therapy and do this, like that's great for so many people, but there's
Right.
also so much more.
Right.
that I
Yeah.
have no idea about. Yeah.
Yeah. Even writing it down. There's a great book called Writing Down the Bones. Um,
Writing the feeling, or writing just writing in general.
Writing in general, writing the feeling, writing the story, getting it out.
Yeah. Hmm. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let me ask, can I just ask you, is there, how, I just want to ask about your boys one more time before we stop, but is how and or how do you feel them the most, or in what moment now? When
Yeah.
do you feel them the most?
Um, I feel Logan the most in regards to his baby sister Trinity. He instigates trouble. He has a very playful relationship with his little sister. And when she's up to no good, it's like, all right, Logan, where are you here? You know? And when she's playing hide and go seek, he loved playing hide and go seek. He loved jumping out at me. Um, there's a certain cabinet door that always just swings open.
Oh,
And I'm
man.
just like, you know, um, for a long time, there was a particular light outside my bedroom in the hallway that would flicker on and off in the night. And I'd be like, okay, there you are. There you are. Um, Patrick, I feel he makes a wisecrack every now and then, but mostly he's uh, more engaged in a spiritual way. Logan is all fun. Like, hey mom, let's come on, let's go do this. Let's go have fun. Hey mom, go for a walk, go ride a bike with Trinity. Hey mom, like he was always ready to get out the door and go do something. And he still cracks the whip when on days when I don't feel like doing something. First of all, I have to have those days too. Like I have to have those days where I don't feel like getting dressed and I don't feel like taking a shower and I feel like eating cheese dip and chips and chocolate all day and popcorn all day, you know? And I just allow that. It's not every day. It might be for multiple days. But eventually it's Logan that cracks the whip and is just like, come on, let's go do something.
Mm.
Yeah.
He helps you get up on those days and get going.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I love that you can feel them. And that, again, like I said, is my one wish for everyone is
Mhm.
in in the readings that I give, the goal is it's yes, I want to allow them to know that they're here through
Yeah.
these validations, but most importantly, I want people to walk away with new tools and to feel better connected themselves with,
Yes.
and I love just your light and how willing you are to share that your journey and also how open you are to feeling them and knowing that connection yourself and trusting that always because love is truly limitless. It's
Mhm.
limitless.
It is. They've really taught me how to go beyond what I thought I knew.
Mm,
They've really given me courage to go beyond um, anything that I had done up until that point and do things bigger, do things more, even if it was wild and crazy, even if I was scared. And I'm like, no, but I've learned that fear for me, like when I feel butterflies in my stomach, or if my hands start sweating, or if I feel that rush of blood going to my face and my heart like pounding, for me, that's telling me go do that thing that you're scared of doing.
mm,
I'm about to learn something new and different. And I have every time. And they've really given me that courage. But before the fire, feeling that fear, it would probably shut me down. And now it's like I have already lived through the scariest moment I could possibly have. And I am here, and I'm here for a reason. And they are showing me what that is,
mm.
you know. So I really depend on their wings sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That just right there. Thank you so much. That is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lindsay. I really
You
appreciate you. And it was so good to see you too.
so good to see you. It's always good to see you.